All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Tuesday morning. A couple accidents to report, one at Fairfield and I-20, another one at Fairfield and Alpine Road, Laurel at Highway 1, Percival and Decker, then one more at Trotter and Garner's Ferry Road. Today, a mix of clouds and sun with a high of 76. Tomorrow, some morning showers with a high of 74. And then Thanksgiving, it's going to drop a little bit. It's going to be breezy and cool with a high of 58. Currently sitting at 56 in downtown Columbia right now on your Tuesday from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on The Game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here. Serenaded a little bit by Living Color welcoming us in as Hate Week begins. Well, it really began yesterday, but we had to talk about the Coastal game. But we're fully on go to be hating the people in orange from the upstate. Well, we hate them every single day, but especially for the next 5 days leading to the rivalry game coming up on Saturday at noon.
Yeah, should be a interesting game to watch. The stakes are not as high as last year or any of these recent years, I would say, but it's still going to be a very interesting game to watch just because these two teams feel like they're kind of on equal footing this year. It's not like 10 years ago where Clemson's the dominant force in college football and South Carolina is looking for a new coach. It's not like that. It's more Clemson's kind of taken a big step back.
Yeah.
And South Carolina in true form has taken a step back as well. So for this game coming up, I feel like it is one of the more even matchups heading into this weekend.
So the line opened with South Carolina as the 2.5-point favorite. I'm actually kind of surprised by that.
A little bit. I think it's more so just having to do with the fact that this game's at home for South Carolina. Now, that doesn't really matter because the home team hasn't won in this game since 2018. So it's been quite a while, and South Carolina hasn't won at Willie B against Clemson since 2013. So that's got to end at some point. Maybe it'll be this year, who knows? But I think it also has more to do with the fact that maybe Clemson's just not that good this year. I mean, they've lost a lot of games that it's just like, wow, this is Clemson? Like this is a team that was in the college football playoff last year.
Yeah. I want to get to a preseason prediction about what this game was supposed to be coming up in just a second, but it is 9 o'clock, and as always, we must kick things off with our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
Oh, it is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. You mentioned this obviously being a season that Clemson fans probably want to forget, certainly one for South Carolina fans too, as the expectations for both programs were really, really high going into the year. What Carolina were they 13th in the preseason poll? Did I get that right?
13th, yep, 13th and got as high as 10.
So both teams within the top 15 when the season began, and the aspirations for Clemson were making a run for the national championship. I went back yesterday and I found this article because I remember reading a lot of this stuff for the season. We talked about it of projections and what the biggest games were going to be, and Clemson, Carolina came up pretty frequently, and I found this one specific article from Matt Hayes of USA Today where he went through week by week of college football and detailed what the biggest games each week were going to be. And, of course, for November 29th, the final week of the regular season, he picked he picked Clemson at Carolina. And his write-up was, this could be the difference between Clemson earning the number 1 overall seed in the college football playoff and or South Carolina making the college football playoff. And you know they hate each other. That is all. And, like, back in August when he wrote this, that wasn't a crazy thought, right? Because, and I think a lot of us were pretty much in agreement. It's like, man, this seems like the year where Clemson's going to kind of become that team again that's a real true threat for the national championship because of what they had returning, how deep and talented their roster was, or what we thought. And then the wheels have obviously came off, and Carolina to an even worse degree where we thought, okay, you had the momentum from last year. You should at the very least be in the mix for the playoff again, and playing Clemson, who could potentially be a top 5 team, could go a long way and maybe vaulting yourself into the playoff this time if you're able to beat them.
Yeah, it's crazy where the expectations were at the beginning of the year. And here's the other thing. I think regardless of what happened this season, even if South Carolina and Clemson were still perennial top 15 teams right now, I don't think it would have the same weight as that game last year did. Because, unless these two teams were going to be playing for a guaranteed playoff spot, maybe as an at-large this year, there's just no way to top what happened last year. I mean, just no chance in the world where they were top 15 teams last year in this game, and South Carolina needed to win that game to stay alive in the playoff hunt. And I think a lot of us thought after that game, it's like, okay, like South Carolina's going to need some help, but they've got a real chance to go to the playoff here after that game. And, of course, they only moved up 1 spot in the playoff rankings a few days later. But it was such a hyped-up game, and it lived up to every billing. And, I wonder what it's going to look like this year to try. And I don't think it's going to be able to top it, but
sure,
it'll still be one to watch for.
Yeah, and I know, like in 2013, the last time South Carolina won at home, funny enough, that was a top 10 matchup with Clemson being number 6 and South Carolina being number 10. But last year, from the standpoint of it seemed like both teams were playing for their way in to the postseason, right? And I get it. 12 years ago, we had a BCS with only 2 teams. For a decade, we had a 4-team college football playoff that Clemson played their way into plenty of times. But that was the first time last year where both teams went into the game where their national championship aspirations were both very much alive. Now, we would learn later on in the day that Clemson was going to get another opportunity to play their way in via the ACC championship because of Syracuse beating Miami. And we thought, okay, well, Carolina still gave themselves a very good shot getting in. Obviously didn't happen, but we're a far cry away from those kind of stakes being on the line coming up this weekend. Clemson's at least already qualified for a bowl game, so it's not the tooth and nail fight of, hey, one team's got to get to 6 wins. Obviously, Carolina's not going to get there. So, yeah, considering the preseason expectations for both teams, very disappointing where we're at going into this weekend.
Especially for Clemson, ranked number 4 in the country coming into the year in an ACC where they've run it over the past, probably over like a decade now, right? I mean,
really, if you go back to really after the Florida State run with Jameis Winston ended, where they played for the national championship, won the ACC the next year, and made the first college football playoff, it's pretty much been Clemson's conference since then. Now there are other teams that have been mixed in and won the conference and made the playoff and that kind of stuff, but for the most part, the decade has belonged to Clemson in the ACC.
It has. So, and again, they had what seemed to be a pretty good roster, even though it was basically for the most part the same one as last year, minus you kind of figure you're kind of piecing it together at the running back position with a wide receiver turn running back and Adam Randall. But yeah, I mean, look, this Clemson team, people were talking about Cade Klubnik being a Heisman hopeful, maybe. This defense having NFL draft picks all over the place, being a very loaded team in 2025, but they've just really underperformed ever since that LSU game to open the year. I feel like that kind of put the wheels in motion for what this season was going to be. And then the Troy game was close. They go to Georgia Tech and they lose a game there. The season kind of just crumbled so quickly, and I don't know. You had people wanting to get rid of Dabo, and you got Dabo's moments in different press conferences this year, and telling, I can't remember what was that one quote he had about, like, Clemson can fire me if they want to or something. Like,
well, and look, it was in the middle of the season where he started pushing back a lot on the negativity of, like, hey, don't forget what I've done here, don't forget about all we've won and all that kind of stuff. And I think it may have been last year where he basically, like, set the table, like, hey, we could have a 6-6 year at some point. That doesn't mean that the good times are over. Well, I guess maybe he was kind of predicting that, because if they lose to Carolina, they would be 6-6 this year. Win, they'd be 7-5. But yeah, the fan base, and look, when you win as much as Clemson has over the past decade, you do raise your level of expectation, right? Like, look at Alabama right now with Kalen DeBoer. They could go 9-3 this year if they lose to Auburn this week and miss the college ball playoff. For 95% of programs, 9-3 being ranked somewhere in the top 20 is a great year. For Alabama, that's a failure. Last year was a failure for them going 9-3. When you win national championships, your bar gets raised so high, and I get what Dabo tries to say, but hey, look at what all we've accomplished, and it's not always going to be the best of the best every single year, but when you give people those results, they expect them to continue, and when you haven't been close to that in the past 5 years, basically, people get frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, they should. The expectations for Clemson are typically pretty high, and in a conference that they've run for so long now, you expect them to do what they did last year and make the college football playoff, but that's not going to be the case this year. And I mean, South Carolina has a chance to. They can't send them home without a bowl invite. I mean, Clemson's already won 6 games, but they can make it a much worse bowl game for Clemson if they were to go 6-6 on the year. So still a lot to play for here. You're playing for pride. You're playing to make sure you're South Carolina. You have the Palmetto Bowl trophy for another season, and that I'm sure Carolina fans don't want to hear anything from these Clemson fans for the next 365 days.
Yeah, you and that's all you're playing for at this point. If you're South Carolina and Clemson too, is pretty much bragging rights, because I don't think either fan base is going to have many, if any, fond memories of this season, right? I think years down the line, and I don't know if Beamer's still here or whatever it may be with the coaching situation, a decade from now, nobody's going to look back and say, hey, man, remember 2025 for South Carolina football? Man, what a season that was. Remember blowing the lead to A&M? Remember, the collapses in the fourth quarter left and right? Like, nobody's going to want to talk about this season ever again once it comes to an end. And I probably feel the same way about how Clemson fans view 2025 as well, because the expectations were so high. And I would say the letdown is even bigger from the Clemson standpoint, because they were looked at as legitimate national championship threats this year. Carolina, we thought they had a chance to make the playoff. I don't know if anybody looked at this team and said, yeah, that's definitely a team that can go out there and win the national championship. We were hoping to be surprised by that if that was the case. But when you have the bar of potential national championship like favorite, because they were on the short list to win the national championship going into the year, and when you're staring the face of a 6-6 or a 7-5, then massive disappointment.
I mean, a lot of questions are going to be having to be answered for these two programs this offseason. And, Clemson's fortunate to be going to a bowl game. They easily could be in a spot right now where, they do have to win this game to stay alive and make it to a bowl game with, 5 wins right now. But they got out of there that Louisville game. That's the one where it's like, wow, they escaped that one. And you could say the same thing about the Troy game and different games this year. But we're going to see what these two teams look like this weekend and who can finish off this regular season on a high note.
Yeah, and look, give credit to Clemson, because guess what? They've qualified for a bowl game and South Carolina hasn't. So as forgettable as as the season's going to be for both sides, they've at least done that. And, Carolina can't make that argument, but they can at least go out there and win the game this weekend to hold those bragging rights for another year. That's what they're playing for.
No, you're right.
Let's take a look at this rivalry in the Beamer era and what's transpired over the last 4 years. Coming up next, we'll also hear a little bit of what Dabo Swinney had to say at his teleconference yesterday as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Tuesday on the Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. The season of giving starts with getting as Twin Peaks has launched its holiday bonus card event. You can buy a gift card for someone on your list, and they'll hook you up with a bonus card just for you because giving feels great, but getting rewarded for it feels even better. You can share the gift of crave-worthy food, ice-cold 29-degree draft beers, and good times at Twin Peaks, and you can treat yourself while you're at it. The bonus card are redeemable January 1st through January 31st, 2026 at participating locations. And this week is the all-week-long Black Friday costume party with the exception of Thursday because that is Thanksgiving, and you can celebrate with Twin Peaks girls. They'll be dressed to impress all weekend long and snag some shopping deals. Slide over for ice-cold drinks, great vibes, and a little holiday fun and kick off the season with style only at Twin Peaks Eats, Drinks, and Scenic Views. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's Howard and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Tuesday on the game as we are getting you set for South Carolina and Clemson coming up this weekend. Of course, kickoff will be at noon on Saturday. Pregame coverage starting bright and early with myself and Terry Ford with Gamecocks Game Day live as always out at Jay's Corner Restaurant and Bar at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. So looking forward to that. By the way, Jack, have you checked the weather for what it's going to look like on Saturday yet?
It's going to be very much cold, and that was how it was last year. It was like 40-something degrees at Clemson, and keep in mind, that's an open-air press box, so it was so cold that day. That's where the whole Bill Scout thing started with the Clemson fans. And yeah, for anyone that did not hear that story from last year, when I was at Clemson, I had my Bills beanie on, and the press box is open. You got the Clemson student section right in front. I could literally reach out and, like I could probably touch a Clemson fan right there.
Yeah.
And I didn't. But the Clemson fans were like, "Oh, are you a Bill Scout?" And I'm like, I played along with it. And Elijah will tell you the story because he was sitting right next to me. I'm like, yeah, I am. And they're like, "Oh, you should come out here and draft Cade Klubnik." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, sure, okay, cool." And that's where that all started. But yeah, it's going to be freezing this weekend.
Well, I was going to say, you need to wear the Bills get up again this time, and if there is a Bills representative, you should just pretend that you work for him.
Shoot. I
mean, hey, man, if Brandon Bean's there again.
Hey, man, hire me.
No, just pretend like you already worked there.
Yeah.
Just like, see if he is like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "Oh, one of your scouts, man. How could you forget?"
Yeah, how could you forget little old me? So
yeah, have fun with it.
Yeah, but we won't have to really worry about the weather this weekend since we'll be in the press box. But
being outside, tailgating, and if you're going to be at the game, it's going to be cold. Bundle up.
Yes, but bundle up for sure. Maybe get a beanie on like I did. So
we'll get more into this rivalry here in just a second. We'll head out first to the AAA Heating Air phone lines. Lawrence wants to weigh in on this South Carolina football team. Lawrence, appreciate your call. What's on your mind today, man?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
Good.
Doing good.
And I use that term loosely. That's a joke. You can laugh. Hey, listen, during all of our stumbles this season, a lot of the fans were, my fellow Gamecock fans, were calling for Shane Beamer's head. And I'm like, now, hold on a minute here. First of all, and maybe they were, longtime friends or something. There was some kind of loyalty. But the Mike Shula experience or experiment, how about that? Okay, that was a disaster. He should have been fired after the second game. That's the only mistake that Coach Beamer, maybe he overlooked for the whole season. Other than that, and our offensive line play was pretty weak, okay, but we got better. And now, the bottom line is this, okay? If we play up to the capabilities that we're capable of, we can take Clemson very easily this weekend. But, again, we got to play 100%. This, half-ass shit, I'm sorry about that. Half-ass crap is not going to get it, okay? We can't do that, okay? We can't play every couple of downs. We got to play every down.
Right. Yeah, no, appreciate the call there. 803-404-6100. You got to move on to some other stuff. It is going to be a good matchup this weekend. And again, it's a 2.5-point line for South Carolina. That probably has to do with the fact that they're playing at home, as you mentioned there a little bit. But I expect this to be a good, 4-quarter game. I'm not expecting either team to really run away with it. You know what I mean?
That's the thing about this game, and then the fact that it's not two great teams going up against each other. But like I said before, I feel like they're on decently level, equal footing in this game to where, I think it should be a close game. But I think they're definitely right about the fact that if South Carolina plays the way it should, like it has the last few weeks here, then it could definitely go out here and run away with this game. Well, I think it's more about what South Carolina does in this game compared to Clemson. Because if South Carolina plays the way that it did this past weekend, I know it's against Coastal, but we've seen this offense grow a bit, and we know what this defense can do. So if you put the two together and they play really well, like we know they can, then it's going to be, I think, a South Carolina win, no doubt.
Yeah, I think the biggest X factor in this is what version of the Furry offense do we get? Is it first half against A&M? Is it second half against A&M? You know what I mean? And we saw a lot of good things last week. And, yes, we can all take it with a grain of salt that it was Coastal, but that was the best offensive performance overall this entire year, and that includes against games like SC State where Mike Shule himself struggled. So is that an indication of what he can do this weekend? And look, I don't expect them to put up 600 yards of offense and 51 points, but you tell me that Mike Furry can get this team over 30 points and have 400 yards of offense. I feel pretty good about their chances of winning this game.
No, definitely. If you're putting up 30 points might win you this game, honestly, because I just don't think this Clemson offense is all that impressive. They're fine, but I mean, it's, Klubnik hasn't been great this year. I think the Randall is doing a lot better than I think most people thought, considering what they had to replace with Maffa. But they got the Wesco's not going to be playing in this game. He's been hurt for a little bit now. This Clemson team has definitely underperformed this year. So I think it does come down to, okay, which South Carolina team is going to show up? The one that played the second half against A&M, or is it going to be the one that went out here, exercised those demons this past weekend against Coastal, and looks to be back on track now?
Well, one thing about this rivalry in the past handful of years is obviously it's been a pretty even matchup in the Beamer era. 2-2, the record for South Carolina. Obviously, the home team has not won in, as you mentioned, since 2018, but particularly in these last 4 years, been the away team picking up the victory, and that obviously bodes well for Clemson this upcoming weekend. But Beamer's been able to get this back to being competitive, right? I mean, Clemson had a reign of terror over Carolina for over a decade, mainly through the Muschamp era and the end of the Spurrier era, that at least when Beamer's gotten here, he's found a way to knock off the 2 victories on the road in the upstate to at least bring a little more balance to this than what it had over the past 10 years.
You're right. I mean, he's been fairly competitive in this rivalry. Like, the first year in 2021, they lost 30-0. So that was a blowout, and that was coming off some pretty good wins to get you to bowl eligibility over Florida and Auburn. And I thought going into that game maybe South Carolina would have played a bit better, but that was when Clemson was kind of still at the peak of its powers at that point. 2022, we all know what happened. Number 8 in the country for Clemson. South Carolina goes in there right off the Tennessee game, wins that one. The 2 years ago, though, kind of a similar spot now where you were trying to go to a bowl game at that point. You finished 5-7. You just had no offense in that game, losing 16-7. And then last year, what a classic game that was. So it's been, the trend has kind of been lose 1 year, win the next. He has not won this game at home as head coach yet. So that's the missing feather in his cap at this point. And, I think for Beamer, it's been a tough year for him personally, it seems like, and just with the program in general. But I got to feel like a win in this game would kind of make you feel a lot better going into the offseason. And it would not change the fact that this season has not gone the way you hope. But I think in some ways it's like, okay, you can build off of this. And, hey, you beat Clemson again. You're 3-2 as the head coach against Clemson.
It is worth noting as well that Clayton White, in the past 2 seasons of this rivalry, when we've had this Garrett Riley, K. Klubnik combo at offensive coordinator and quarterback, Clayton White's done a really good job against them, right? No offensive touchdowns allowed 2 years ago. Obviously, Carolina didn't win that game. Only 14 points a year ago. K. Klubnik has not thrown a touchdown pass against Clayton White's defense in these past 2 seasons. In fact, 2 interceptions over the course of those 2 games. Like, he's got something kind of figured out about what this offense is at Clemson that hopefully bodes well for them this weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that will be the case here. And, Clayton's done a great job. I think they put together a really good game plan this past weekend, and hopefully it'll carry over, as well as what the offense can do, because the offense has picked it up a bit since Mike Furry's taken over.
Hopefully so. And again, we'll continue to break this matchup down more as the week goes along. Coach Beamer speaking today at 1 o'clock, and we'll get his thoughts on it and what to expect for this upcoming weekend as well. Coming up next, we will dive into what's going on around college football, including tonight's latest college football playoff top 25. What kind of shakeups, if any, are we expecting on tonight's show? That's coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Tuesday on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's our Ed and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Of course, our focus this week is on the South Carolina Clemson rivalry, and we're doing a lot of things this week in preparation for it, including the Beat Clemson, Beat Hunger drive, which is happening today over at JT's Jeep, Chrysler, and Ram on Greystone Boulevard. You can join Terry Ford out there today from 3 until 6, and we encourage you to bring non-perishable food items to help beat hunger this holiday season. Then tonight, because, of course, we have the Thanksgiving holiday on Thursday, so they're not expecting anybody to be out at Backstreet's Grill on Thursday. I doubt they'd even be open on Thursday. Carolina Calls will be tonight instead. So we'll get a double dose of Beamer today. We'll get him at 1 o'clock for his usual Tuesday presser, and they'll get him tonight for Carolina Calls to give his final thoughts ahead of the Clemson game this weekend.
Yeah, so a little bit of a different schedule. This week's always been kind of weird because it's like it is Thanksgiving week, and we're not on radio on Thursday, and then we're getting back into it on Friday, and then you got the Clemson game. So it's the schedule is always weird during this week, but it's always a big one at that because it is Clemson.
But this is my favorite week of the entire year. For one, I love Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's become my favorite holiday because guess what? You just got to eat. You don't have to buy presents for people. You don't have to.
Thank God.
Yeah, you don't even have to dress up. You know what I mean? You can wear sweatpants and a hoodie, and that's acceptable Thanksgiving wear. And then you can sit around and watch football. And not only that, I love what we've done now that the SEC has, or the ESPN has the SEC contract, where Friday we get the Egg Bowl, Clean Old Fashioned Hate, and Texas A&M back to back to back all day long, leading us into a full Saturday of games as well.
Yeah, and some decent games on Friday in between that aren't even the national games broadcast. You're always gonna get Iowa, Nebraska is gonna be played on Friday at noon. You'll get trying to think of other games there's typically a full slate on Friday, and then you get into Saturday and it's okay, more good games. And this year, I feel like there's a ton of good rivalry games.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a fun weekend for sure, and we'll preview those matchups a little bit tomorrow and on Friday as well. But tonight, we'll get the first release for a college football player, or the next release for a college football playoff top 25 rankings as we try and set this year's 12-team field. Worth noting, Heather Dinich reporting on this yesterday, and look, we haven't talked about this as much because this is more kind of off-season conversation, but the original deadline to decide on next year's format for the college football playoff had been set for December 1st, which is next Monday for those not keeping up. No decision's been made as of yet, but we did get a deadline moved. So yesterday, it has been moved to January 23rd. So that's right around the time of this year's national championship game where we should learn. And look, to me, it's going to go to 16. I guess they're debating back and forth on automatic bids and all that kind of stuff, but I think it's going to go to 16. They've now given themselves another month and a half to confirm that, essentially.
I just don't see a way in which this doesn't get expanded. I think we're okay at 12, but I think going to 16, what's the harm in adding 4 more teams, right? And it's more money for the sport. It's just more games to watch as fans. So I'm okay with it, and I wonder what the format would look like. Are there first-round buys? Does everybody play each other? I think that's what it would be, right? The latter of there wouldn't be any first-round buys. Am I right on that? Or
so you can have basically 2 formats where one is just 1 through 16, and then you play everybody. So you'd have 8 games in the opening round. You'd have 4 games in the second round, 2 games, then 1 game. So there'd be no buys there. Or you could stagger it where you'd have the top 4 teams getting, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it'd be the top 4 teams getting buys, and then you'd have you have 6 games in the first round. You'd have, I'm not doing the math in my head correctly on that. Either way, there's a way where you can work it out where you have at least 2 or 4 buys, and then you get into your next round. So there could still be a buy structure in there. I don't know which way they're going to go, but again, I think we're kind of just kicking the can down the road at this point.
Yeah. So I think we'll get the expansion at some point, but with the current playoff, it's very intense right now. There's a lot of, and this thing's going to go down to the wire, I think, with how many teams could be in the mix heading into this weekend.
So we didn't have the most chaotic weekend when it came to college football. Really, all things considered, and we talked about the games yesterday, really nothing crazy, right? We didn't have any top 10 upsets or anything along those lines. I mean, really, the closest a top 10 team came to losing was Oregon, and they pulled away from, Southern Cal late. Oklahoma was never really, it felt like in danger of losing to Missouri. So the entire top 10 stayed status quo to the point where I don't expect, quite frankly, any movement from 1 to 10 with tonight's rankings.
I don't expect any movement from, go all the way to 14. I think everything probably will stay the same because you had BYU, Utah, Miami, Vanderbilt all win. And then you got we'll see some movement with Southern Cal and Georgia Tech. They're going to slide down. The big question is how far do they slide down? Both teams lost by 2 scores.
Mm-hmm.
So, Texas and Michigan are going to move up. I would think Virginia moves up. Tennessee moves up. And then Illinois lost. Missouri lost. Houston lost. So you're going to probably see a few new teams in the top 25. Here's the big question for you, Tyler.
Okay.
Tulane's currently the one G5 school in the top 25.
Yes.
Is there another G5 school that gets into the top 25, considering there are a few teams that will fall out?
So I really thought we would have seen James Madison.
I feel like they got to be in, right?
I thought they would have already been in. It's very clear the committee, because again, that Tulane is 8-2. They've already got 2 losses on the year. James Madison's only loss is to a pretty good Louisville team that they themselves only recently dropped out of the top 25. I feel like if they've not valued James Madison and the Sun Belt highly enough to this point, I don't know anything that I don't know if they're going to, right? And let me make sure here because I believe Tulane is still in the driver's seat in terms of leading the American. Yes, so right now Navy, North Texas, and Tulane are all in a 3-way tie atop the conference championship there in the American, and I don't believe Navy and Tulane have played. Navy also did not play North Texas, so I'm not sure what exactly.
No, Navy lost to North Texas.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Navy did lose North Texas, so
that's one of their 2 losses.
I believe that means it's looking like North Texas and Tulane would play for the conference championship.
Most likely.
And that essentially, and it's weird because North Texas is 10-1. Tulane is 9-2. Why aren't they putting more value on a 10-1 North Texas than a 9-2 Tulane team?
Didn't North Texas get? I'm trying to think. They lost to somebody that
they lost to South Florida, and that's a good South Florida team. That's their only loss.
That is a good
on
South
the year.
Florida team.
I guess.
Well, they got crushed in that game. I mean, it's 63-36.
It was a lopsided loss, and I guess they're putting higher value on the fact that I guess Tulane played Ole Miss and lost. They got blown out in that game. And then they lost to UTSA, who's a 500 team.
Yeah, I was about to say, they got blown out by UTSA.
I don't know why you value Tulane more than North Texas at this point.
I don't know either. But I do feel like JMU's got to get into the top 25 just as a result of – because, Illinois, Missouri, Houston – Houston might be the only team that sticks around in the top 25 from that bunch, but the other 2 should definitely fall out for sure, and that opens up 2 spots, right?
I will say this. I do feel like, because we talk so much about the bias of being in the SEC or the Big Ten, I think there's a G5 bias too, where in kind of like an order, it goes American, Mountain West, maybe like Conference USA, then Sun Belt in terms of the way the committee views those other conferences?
Yeah, I think unless you get some big screw-ups in the American, the winner of the American's probably going to the college football playoff.
Now, last year, Boise State was out in the Mountain West, but their only loss was a close loss to Oregon. They made themselves undeniable.
Oh, yeah.
And again, like I think the American and Mountain West are kind of interchangeable for the most part. But like the Sun Belt Conference USA, the MAC, like I think all those conferences are viewed as kind of like second tier in the G5, where it's going to be a lot harder for you to get a representative in the playoff.
It will be. I think it is important who you get in from the G5 ranks, because I think all these games could be it could be a blowout, whoever gets in, but I think you got to figure out, okay, is JMU the better fit or is Tulane? So it feels like it's probably down to those two teams right now, but you would say Tulane has the upper hand just because they are currently in the rankings.
Yeah, look, if they keep winning, there's no reason to think that they wouldn't be the G5 representative, but obviously got another game to play this weekend and then conference championship coming up next weekend to try and punch their ticket. But I think you're right. I think the committee views like, hey, we want a team that's going to be able to be competitive where, and again, hypothetically, we don't know how good JMU could be against, say, an Ole Miss or whoever they would end up playing there in the first round. But the committee doesn't want blowouts, right? They want a team that they feel like can be competitive, and maybe they view Tulane as the most capable one of doing that right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out, I guess, but we'll see.
Speaking of teams that have not been competitive in the past couple years, Florida State has decided to keep Mike Norvell. We'll discuss that coming up next as we wrap up the hour. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Tuesday here on the game. Getting you set for rivalry weekend in college football, which all gets started. I believe do we have a game on Thursday? I think we do.
Yeah, Navy plays
That's right.
at Memphis.
Yes.
So I was tempted to put that game on the staff picks, but typically we post these on Friday. It's going to be weird this year because I'm asking for the picks earlier, and it's like we got Thanksgiving, and then we got a full slate of games on Friday. So we have a lot of games to pick from this year.
I will say, and look, the Egg Bowl has a lot of underlying storylines in it this year with all the Lane Kiffin stuff going on. I do miss when that game was on Thanksgiving.
I agree. I always liked when that was the only game on Thursday. I get it. It's a day dominated by the NFL. Like, you're not going to outdraw the NFL. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I mean, there was a certain charm it had when it was on Thursdays. I mean, gosh, it's been how many years now since it was moved?
I want to say 2. I think 2 years ago was the last time it was on Thursday.
I think you're right. 'Cause last year they moved it to Friday.
Yeah, because now that, again, ESPN has the SEC contract, they've moved it around a little bit there. But yeah, I always loved, because here's the thing, the NFL certainly dominates the holiday, but it was always neat to be able to flip back and forth between whatever the 8:30 NBC game was and then this weird Egg Bowl where something ridiculous and crazy was probably going to happen. And that backs up once again this year because you have the storyline of, okay, Ole Miss is probably going to win the game or maybe not. And then Lane Kiffin's going to decide his future the next day.
I don't know, man. I mean, it's in Starkville. Mississippi State's had a ton of close games this year to where if any of those games that they lost go their way, they're probably sitting at, probably 8-4, 8-3 right now, maybe even having 9 wins. I mean, it's been a difficult year for Mississippi State from the standpoint of they haven't been able to close out games against good teams, but maybe with this being the Egg Bowl, maybe that'll be a different story. I mean, it was a pretty competitive game last year in the first half until Ole Miss decided to start playing a lot better.
One game that's going to be happening this weekend is the battle in the state of Florida. Florida State taking on the Gators. And, Mike Norvell doesn't feel like he's going to be coached for his job this weekend because Florida State has officially announced they are going to be retaining him for the 2026 season, despite the fact that team is on the verge of missing a bowl game once again as they're 5-6 on the year. If they lose Florida, they'd obviously drop to 5-7. And again, a far cry from where they were 2 years ago, being undefeated and being left out of the college football playoff as ACC champions.
It's kind of crazy where they've gone this season. They had the great win over Alabama to open the year, and everyone's on the Florida State bandwagon thinking, okay, this is a top 10 team in the country. They're going to be in the playoff this year. They've gotten over what happened last year. But, I mean, that's why you don't judge a team early in the season because you never know what they could be later on. And once Florida State got off to such a horrible start in ACC play, they just have not fully recovered since then. Lost this past weekend to NC State, a team that they probably should have beaten. And now you're going to Gainesville trying to, get bowl eligibility, right? Florida's got nothing to play for other than pride in this one, but going to be tough going to the Swamp.
So Mike Norvell currently 38-33 with only 2 winning seasons in his time at Florida State so far. The biggest thing about this is his buyout would have been $54 million after that contract extension he got after the 2023 season. And according to this article from ESPN, it would take about $72 million to buy out his entire staff. In an era where money matters so much, especially with how many other jobs are open right now, I understand exactly why Florida State is doing this.
I just don't think it'd be wise to fire him. I don't think he deserves another year, but money talks, and that's a lot of money you got to put towards not just him, but the staff and making a hire. We're talking about probably over $100 million in just contracts alone that you got to invest in making this all happen. And it's easy to say that these universities, these big ones, these big-time football programs have all this money. Like, it's no issue. But money is an object in some cases, and you got to be smart with it. And I think Norvell, I don't know how much Florida State trusts him to turn this thing around, but I think you got to give him some benefit of the doubt, not just because of the money, just also because 2 years ago, Florida State was 13-0, playing for a chance to, should have been in the college football playoff, but an injury happened to Jordan Travis, and that kind of hurt those odds of getting in. So you hope that that's where this thing can go with your Florida State, but it's not looking good right now.
Yeah, and look, there's no denying that he's going to be coaching for his job next year because they will not accept another subpar season of missing a bowl game, no matter what the buyout is. So he's got one more chance, and it sounds like they're going to try and invest more in resources and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see that's enough to save his job. But, yeah, that job at least is not coming open in this cycle of so many other jobs being open.
And the other thing to think about here is just the fact that there are, like you said, Tyler, there are so many other jobs open to where Florida State would be a very appeasing job. It'd be very attractive, I think. But, I mean, if you're Florida State, who are you going to hire with? Are you going to be on a limited budget when it comes to making the hire just because you're putting so much money into firing the coaching staff? Like, it's just, from a financial standpoint, it just didn't make sense to move on from him. But I'm sure they have had thoughts of it, but it's just like the money's, it's like a dark cloud right now hanging over to you.
So he'll get another chance in 2026, and we'll see what he does with that. Coming up next, it's the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. We'll talk about some women's sports, and Wes Mitchell sitting down with Lexi Winters and Precious Bross of Gamecock Softball. That's all coming up next here on your Tuesday on the Game. Ty right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. Looking at the wet forecast, it does look like we're going to have some rain coming in here over the course of the next couple of days. And if you have an open crawl space under your home and recently experienced a storm, as always, I like to remind you, you need to make sure you don't have standing water underneath your home. High humidity and condensation in that crawl space can create an environment for mold and mildew and invite pests like termites into your home as well, which you absolutely do not want. That moisture can also lead to things like wood rot and floor joist problems as well. And having that much water under your home and standing water can even affect the air that you breathe, because about half the air in your home does come from your crawl space, and that's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantykimdix.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantykimdix.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists. All right, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's our Ed and Jack Feltry along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. We'll get into Wes Mitchell's conversation with Lexi Winters and Precious Bross from Gamecock softball coming up in just a few minutes. We are obviously in the midst of basketball season, and Don Staley's crew picking up another win on Sunday. Do you ever feel bad for other teams when watching a game like this? Because what they did to Queens, as they do to a lot of these small mid-major programs, is probably not legal in some states because they just beat them down relentlessly. 121-49, the final score. Queens had 5 points in the entire first quarter.
I mean, just absolute obliteration by South Carolina against a team like Queens. That here's the thing that Dawn has pointed out before, that nobody wants to play them. Like, they're making a trip to go play Coppin State this season. Like, and I know Coppin State's a little bit of a PTSD thing for some South Carolina basketball fans with the men's side from the NCAA tournament in the 90s. But, like, that's the thing. Like, this women's team, they'll play some good teams in non-con, but they got to go play, like, they're going to, like, Florida Gulf Coast and South Florida. South Florida's a decent team, but, like, they're going to play, like, some random schools that's just, like, for South Carolina, why aren't they playing more of the Southern Cals and the...
Well, because other teams don't want to play them.
Yeah, the UConns. That's the thing, because other teams don't want to play them. So I get it. And, look, you got to just play who's on the schedule, and South Carolina's handled its business no problem so far.
Yeah, so they'll be in action coming up tomorrow as they'll be out at the Players Era Championship, which is going on in Vegas right now. The men's stuff going on yesterday and today, I believe. And then women's takes over tomorrow, so it'll be a 4:30 tip, which you can listen to right here on the game as they take on Duke. And then because it's a tournament style thing, we don't know who they're going to be playing on Thanksgiving Day, but they'll either play at 8 p.m. or 10:30 p.m. local time here against Texas or UCLA. This could be a rare instance of playing a conference team in a non-conference setting. If they do end up playing Texas, depending on who wins between those two teams in their first game.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see who they do play on Thursday in Vegas. I mean, this is going to be a good little test for South Carolina, that I think they should be able to come out of here with 2 wins, but still playing better competition this week, and it's at a neutral site. You're on the West Coast. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but I mean, South Carolina has proven to be fine in these games before, and I have no reason to believe why they wouldn't be this week.
You know, women's sports has kind of carried the banner for South Carolina athletics so far this year. Again, Dawn's crew coming up short of the national championship, getting there once again, and obviously Ashley Chastain Woodard's softball team coming quite literally 1 out away from going all the way to Oklahoma City for the Women's College World Series in year number 1. Very impressive. Fun to follow.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been a great year for women's sports and all they've done. Women's basketball, getting to the Final Four. South Carolina softball, getting literally an out away from going to Oklahoma City. And on the men's side, it's just, I mean, what's going on, man? What's going on with the men's sports here at South Carolina?
We're certainly hoping 2026 bodes a whole lot better, and that'll start with Lamont Paris's team when conference play begins at the beginning of the year. We'll see what year 2 of Maneri is, and obviously it's going to be a make-or-break year for Shane Beamer when next fall rolls around.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a make-or-break year. It'll probably be a make-or-break year for all the men's sports in terms of their coaching. I mean, Lamont Paris, Paul Maneri, even Beamer. Yeah, I mean, all of them very much could be, fighting for their jobs in their current seasons and heading into next year.
Well, as fun as softball was, we've enjoyed talking about it this year for sure. And Wes Mitchell the other day sat down with Lexi Winters and Precious Bross, talk about this past year and look ahead to what's coming in 2026. And here's that conversation.
All right, guys, welcome into another episode of wherever you're finding this. It could be the Garnet Trust Hour. It could be on the Gamecock Central YouTube. We're also on the Game YouTube as well. So wherever you are joining us today and watching or listening, we appreciate you hopping on with us. We got some special guests from South Carolina softball. We've got Lexi Winters. We've got Precious Bross, both joining us. And, ladies, I know you've had a lot going on the field, off the field lately. So, first of all, how are we doing? Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're both doing great. It's been amazing being here already, and you just have shown us around. We've had a great time. Season has gone well. Fall season, we won all our games, so that was exciting. Yeah, we just wrapped up our fall segment. We now go into a time where everybody goes home and you get to kind of work on your own. And we come back January 4th and it's full speed ahead once we get back.
You got to have that time, I feel like, to reset a little bit. So I'll start with you, Lexi. You're the veteran here. So December, in terms of like softball activities, is it literally completely shut down, or it's more just I got to get in a little work here and there? It's just not quite as maybe focused. For fans out there who are curious, like what is a day in the life going to look like coming up in December?
Yeah, so we use this program. We've used it when we were at Charlotte, and Coach Ash and Coach Katie and our staff really believe in it, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's just created a sense of ownership and responsibility with your own training. So we do winter accountability groups, so we split our team up into somewhat even groups as much as possible, and there are weekly requirements that every person must do on their own. So you have softball requirements, throwing requirements, lift and sprint requirements, and then we also read a book as a team as we're separated. And each winter accountability group will meet with one another for like a FaceTime call, a phone call, just to kind of review the chapters that we had talked about. This year we're actually reading Atomic Habits, so it's very applicable to everything that we do. But we actually just created all the groups, and we start on Monday for Thanksgiving week, and then we'll do it all the way up until January 2nd.
Okay, cool. And so I always hear like Coach Ash kind of talk about the system here and kind of the structure that is in place at South Carolina. You saw it for several years at Charlotte, then at South Carolina as well. Precious, it's all maybe a little bit new to you. What has been maybe the biggest difference for you coming in at South Carolina versus like your year at Georgia? Obviously two really good, strong SEC programs, but everybody's going to have their way of doing things. So what have you seen from like Coach Ash, Coach Katie, and just the approach here, I guess?
Yeah, I definitely feel like coming here, like she said, they talk about the system a lot, and I feel it. I feel like I've come here and like I can feel the way that they trust their system, and like people like Winnie and people who've been here already, like they trust the system, and I feel like a lot of it is just, you know, diving head on into whatever they're telling us. Like they're amazing coaches. I mean, Coach Ash was like Coach of the Year, so I mean, she clearly knows what she's talking about, the whole staff as a whole. So I felt that, and it just builds like a lot of trust, and like, okay, it's not going to happen overnight, but just trusting everything that we're doing as a team, individually, and it's just going to set us up for a lot of success in February.
Y'all are both local. You know, you grew up in the area, played high school ball in the area. Both of you transferred in back to South Carolina, and Lexi, what was it like for you, kind of going back to last year? Like this time last year, you were getting ready for your first season at South Carolina. How did it feel to be able to have that opportunity last year, and does it feel any different this year, sort of knowing what to expect from like SEC ball and that kind of little jump up in terms of the conference you're playing in, week out?
Yeah, I think kind of across all boards, last year and this year, just extremely grateful for it all. The theme for USC and Carolina, it's welcome home, and it just means something completely different here. I mean, we welcome home Coach Ash, all of our players, a lot of staff members too. Everybody always ends up coming back to Columbia, and I think that is just like remarkable. It's amazing. Last year, I think I said the word "this is amazing" so many times, or it was a dream come true, and I think that is like everybody believes that, and everyone else feels that. I know I've heard Precious say it a million times too, and it's just so true. This year, just ready to kind of use the things that I learned from last year and apply them to this year, of the failures, the wins, the good and bad, using that to kind of propel myself and the team forward as a whole, and just get that one out this year and make it to the World Series.
I want to talk a little bit about off the field, this camp you guys have coming up. Precious, you just had kind of your own camp. Now we've got a group camp going on. Great opportunity for any local girls who are wanting to just be around the program a little bit, to develop their game, to get better. I feel like there's a lot of negativity when it comes to NIL from some people, but this is like a very cool thing that NIL allows you all to do. Precious, I'll go to you first. Like, How exciting was it to get out there and just kind of be in your community a little bit and give back? And how excited are you to be able to do it again with your teammates?
Wow, I mean, honestly, I don't even have words for the way that made me feel whenever I had my own camp. I know growing up, I didn't really have like a lot of camps like that. Like I would go to maybe colleges or things like that, but I had never had camps with players on teams. And I feel like looking at them and knowing like, wow, imagine if I was doing that. Like, I know how I would have felt. I've been like, oh my goodness. So it felt surreal being that person for them and being able to pour into them and give them anything I know and just like have fun, like seeing their smiles and the parents, like the way they were reacting to it. I mean, I felt like I was like, wow, this is kind of like what you said, like NIL, like this is what NIL is. I feel like it's using our platform for good and like to help, you know, inspire the young girls below us, not just all about like money or anything like that.
Now, in terms of if somebody out there is listening that either is a high school softball player or a parent who has a daughter that's playing, what are the details, Lexi, on the camp, and how can they sign up if they would like to?
Yeah, we have a post on all of, so me, Precious, Carly Shelton, and Tate Davis, the four of us are kind of spearheading the camp, and all four of us have it posted on our Instagram profiles, and there is a QR code that you're able to scan, and it takes you directly to our camp website. You then select which camp session you're going to sign up for. They're separated by ages, but they're the same price, same time limit, just different times of the day. And you sign up, and then we go have fun. So it's really the only requirement.
December 13th. Okay. Sorry, Saturday. And I know that that's an awesome opportunity. If you're listening out there, you're watching us, go check that out. I'm sure your daughters would love it, or if you're playing yourself, you would definitely love it. So it's a great spot there, I think, to take a break. You are listening to the Garnet Trust Hour, possibly, or you might be on our Gamecock Central YouTube. This is going to be posted several different places. Wherever you're listening to us, we appreciate you hopping on and joining us. We'll be right back with Precious and with Lexi here on The Game.
If you are looking for a reliable local roofing company to help your home or business with your roofing needs, check out our friends at Classic Roofing. Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, our guys, friends of the program here. They can help you take good care of your roof. That can be challenging, but you don't have to do it alone. They have years of expertise under their hats. They're a local company. Again, their families live right here in the Midlands, and the guys at Classic Roofing are GAF certified roofers. Only about 7% of roofers nationwide even have that certification. They can do inspections, installations, replacements, and repairs on your roof. You can visualize your new roof and what it would look like at classicroofingsc.com. You can check out their reviews and get a free estimate there. classicroofingsc.com, or give them a call, 803-590-7870. That's the reliable roofers over at Classic Roofing.
All right, welcome back in. Two special guests from Gamecock softball. We got Precious, we got Lexi talking about NIL, off the field, on the field. And we hit on it a little bit earlier, but Lexi, I want to get your take on, there are positives to NIL. And I feel like being able to partner with like local businesses and true kind of situations where maybe there's a return on investment for the business, but there's a return on investment for the athlete. Kind of is, I believe, the way NIL was originally envisioned. So whether it's camps and this opportunity you guys have coming up or just maybe partnering with some other local businesses, what has your experience been like so far at South Carolina in terms of that?
I love it. It allows me to be a part of the community in ways that I wasn't able to do in years past. And it lets me see like a whole different side of just NIL, athletics, college sports, softball as a whole, women's sports as a whole. I mean, working with, specifically for camps and working with other teams, you just get to see the spark in their eyes, and then it kind of reignites the spark in mine. I was talking to some girls last week. I worked with a travel ball team for 2 practices. It was people that I knew growing up, and I told them at the end that they helped me so much more than they even knew, and kind of just, I don't know, like showed that love of the game again in ways that us doing it every single day doesn't do for us. But then working with businesses and other people in the community, I mean, it's just a good way to stay interconnected with a bunch of people. And like Precious was saying, it's all about the relationships that you're creating. And I think that that's the most important part of the NIL, and just the experience that you get from it and the people that you get to meet. It's amazing.
Let's go on the field with you. You said obviously y'all won your all your fall games, and it's a great, I feel like, tune-up to get you ready going into the games that are going to matter coming up, during the regular season. But Precious, were there any areas of your game that you were maybe focused on the most and that you're going to kind of carry into the season? And how do you feel like that progress and development went for you?
I feel like we talked about earlier, just like trusting the system, just like diving head in on all the things that I'm learning. I've played like a lot of different positions, and then worked with my hitting a lot. So just kind of like taking everything I learned in the fall and like really diving into it over this break, like with our accountability groups and everything, just working really hard there. So then when we get back in January and February, like we're all just ready for whatever we need to do at any point.
Lexi, I want to go back to the accountability groups. You said possibly fairly evenly distributed. Does that mean this is a competition? Like, is there going to be a winner and loser at the end, or it's just like?
No, so we have 6 different groups, and so each group has a leader. There's 4 people total in each group, except one group has 3. But it's really just a way for everyone to stay connected with one another. We use Instagram accounts. They are private, but we use them to kind of make it fun. We post Instagram story highlights, and you put what day it is, what week it is, and you get to just keep track of what everyone's doing. And like some of our girls are going on cruises and vacations. One of our players is going to Hawaii, so like we get to watch her figure out how to train in Hawaii. So it's just a cool way to stay connected with everyone. And then we send like summaries at the end of the week of what everybody did. So it's just a really cool way to stay in touch with one another.
Do y'all have any trips coming up? Anybody else going to Hawaii, or y'all are staying in the Midlands? No Hawaii trips?
Yeah, just staying right
here.
Now, were they accountable? Like, did they get out and run on the beach in Hawaii? Did they do it?
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet. Oh, we have to find out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's it happen? Well, they better. They better.
I'm sure
We've
she
had
will.
people
It's
in
gonna
the
be
past
great.
be on cruises, and they do like glove work on the basketball court of the cruises, or like on the cruise ships.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they do all the different glove work and stuff, and then you get to just see it, and it's like, wow, training in paradise.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, no.
Yeah, you can work out anywhere. So okay, cool, very good. And Precious, in terms of like the technology is always interesting to me that has become a part of sports. And I feel like, especially in baseball and softball, there's analytics for everything. How much does that like affect your game and your approach, and how much at South Carolina is like the technology a part of the program, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, Cass is our person who works a lot with the numbers, and I mean, we use a lot of numbers for hitting, obviously, like statistics they show your trends in softball and in baseball. So we use a lot of numbers here just to kind of see where we're at, especially in the fall. It's like a time that you're working through things and figuring things out. So like it gives us good feedback, like hard hit balls, like things like that. Like maybe not all the numbers in terms of like average, like you're not very outcome based, but just like, you know, getting some feedback about how hard you're hitting the ball, like direction, you know, the way you're hitting the ball, like how it's coming off the bat. So all these different little things, I feel like that's the kind of stuff we focus on in the fall to be prepared for maybe more outcome-based things in the real season, you know.
Yeah, and I think coaches often, they talk more about the process than the outcome. I know a thing I picked up from you all last year, Lexi, you can maybe speak to this. Isn't there a quality A/B, or I'm not sure, is that what, how do y'all phrase it?
We call it a CPA.
CPA, okay.
Yeah.
And that's what, there's
Competitive plate appearance.
and there's a bunch of different ways you can get a CPA, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you got a hit, it's more like your process here was good. So what are is it like 7 or 8 different things that are a CPA?
Yeah, 7 or 8. I mean, we have obviously a base hit.
Yes.
Then you have an RBI, a hard hit ball, a 7+ pitch at bat, a walk counts.
Moving a runner with less than 1 out.
Yeah,
right?
moving a runner into scoring position with less than 1 out.
Okay, yeah.
Is that everything? You said walk, hit by pitch. Did we
Hit
say
by
that?
pitch, yeah. Any way of getting on base. A sac fly.
Yeah.
There's a
Action
lot.
play? I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
executing an
that's-
action play. I mean,
Did you say hard hit ball? I think, yeah.
Like
it's
over
the
68 miles per hour. Exit
Okay.
velo.
Okay. And they can track all that stuff like on the
Yes.
fly. Okay, cool. Very good. Lexi, I talked about this with you off air when I met you in person the first time. Your jump at the plate, just in terms of your production this year, or this past year, compared to the year prior at Charlotte, what did you sort of attribute that just jump for you, just in terms of production, your first year at Carolina?
yeah, I think coming into it, knowing that obviously the SEC is where the best softball is, you kind of know that there's that higher level of competition, which seems daunting, like thinking about it, but all I did was continue training, like Precious has been alluding to the whole entire time, the process, the system, continuing on that same path. I worked a lot on my mental game, like the mental side of the game of pitch selection and like analyzing and understanding pitchers and their trends. And honestly, just belief in myself was the big difference. I was kind of seen as like this defensive specialist, like defensive player, but I knew deep down that that wasn't the truth. And so I think myself, like believing it in myself, allowed it to actually show. And then the results showed for itself too. So just continuing to instill that in myself, but also instilling that in the entire team too.
As it was happening, where you kind of was like that belief kind of snowballing, because you were like, I started out confident, but now I'm seeing it actually happen. So then does the belief and confidence grow even more from there as last season was kind of progressing for you?
For sure. I mean, we have a mental performance coach that we work with, and that was kind of like the theme of every conversation that we were having. I am what I believe I am, and as I continue getting results, and even if I don't find the results in it, if I can continue to stay on that path of who I believe I am as not just a defensive player, not just as an offensive player, but as a player as a whole, then the process and just the joy of the game will continue to be there and grow even more.
I feel like that's a huge thing with this staff, is just building up confidence. Like, you look at somebody like Brooke Blankenship, who was on the team last year. She was kind of seen more as a defensive shortstop, and she had a ton of key at-bats for you all last year.
Definitely.
Precious, being, kind of in the program for a few months now, what have you seen in that in terms of just this staff's ability or approach to try and, like, just build confidence in every individual player on this roster?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like our coaches take a lot of time to be very vulnerable with us and like have conversations with us, really understand like where our mind is and what we're thinking and what we're feeling throughout some of these changes. Like here we use motor preference, so that it's like a big thing. Like I've never done that. A lot of the transfers that's come in like have never used motor preference, and that's just like a way that we figure out the best way to maximize our bodies and our athleticism. So I feel like that was something for me that was a little bit different, but very rewarding as you continue to work through it. But I think they just take a lot of time to like hear what you're thinking, what you're feeling, like how we can figure things out individually and like as a team as in a whole, like how you can bring more to the table by just diving into it. And so I think since they take that time to actually have those conversations with us, and like we had a mid-season little check-in, and obviously we have our end-of-season little check-in, but I think between that they just take a lot of time to ask you like what's it going on in your head, and it makes a big difference because it kind of builds that trust with one another, and that builds confidence as well.
For sure. All right, y'all, we got to take another quick break. When we come back, we will complete our awesome interview here with Precious Bras and Lexi Winters from South Carolina Softball.
All right, folks, let me tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media. The beautiful thing about it is you can take your dreams for that home, make it a smart home, dreams for your man cave, dreams for the living room, and they can take whatever you're thinking about and then just turn it into a reality. You can hit them up today, integratedmediainc.com, or give them a phone call. It is 803-948-8327. Their services include basically anything to do with your TV, your surround sound, your smart home services, or securities and cameras. If you work from home, for me, it was all about my home office. Didn't really have a great connection to the Wi-Fi. Needed hardwired internet, so they came in. They ran Ethernet throughout the home into my office, into my wife's office, and made sure we had a great connection there. And then we went a step further with whole home Wi-Fi. They can also hang TVs. They can hide the wires for you, and they can go all in on that man cave too. Hit them up today. Again, for more information, integratedmediainc.com.
All right, welcome back in. Final segment here with Lexi and Precious from South Carolina softball. And girls, for anybody who was not listening to us earlier, I want to go over the details for the camp one more time. The date, Precious?
December 13th.
The time?
The first session is from 9 to 12, and then the second session is from 1 to 4.
And Lexi, it is located where?
On all 4 of our Instagram accounts. So my Instagram account, Precious's Instagram, Tate Davis's, and Carly Shelton. And it will show you a QR code at the bottom, and you're able to scan it, and it'll take you directly to our camp website where you can sign up for whatever session.
And where is it at a high school locally?
Irmo High School.
Irmo High School.
Yes.
Home of Precious Ross.
Yes.
What did playing at Irmo do to set you up for future success, Precious?
I feel like, man, Irmo, just the community that we had there, I feel like that grew a lot of confidence for me. I mean, honestly, I can't even imagine where I'd be without them. My coaches were amazing, the training staff, my principals, like literally every single person there I felt like supported to no end. And I feel like that gave me a lot of confidence, not as just like an athlete, but a student athlete. I knew I was able to figure out a good balance with school and with athletics and how I could navigate everything. So I don't know, those relationships just changed my life, and being able to go back there and help in any way I can has just also been very rewarding for me.
Lexi, I was at several games for the regional last year. I was at 2 games for the super regional. I know there were some great atmospheres during the regular season, but I mean, that place was like on fire for those games. What was it like looking around, being a local athlete and just playing in those atmospheres, and just, it just felt different. What was that like being down there on the field for it?
I mean, I've said it once and I'll say it again. It was a dream come true. I used to be the ones in the stands, filling up any open seat I could and having popcorn and pretzels all the time. But I don't think that I realized how many people were there until I go back and look at all the photos and the videos and just the media that our media team was posting after the games. Was like, oh my gosh, there really was no seats available. There was standing room only seats and or tickets, I guess. But it's amazing for the program. It was amazing for the team last year, but I think it just set a precedent for every team that's coming up in the program, and for future years to come. And yeah, I think it just kind of reset the standard of what Carolina softball is all about. And the community grew immensely from it. And there's people all the time like, oh my gosh, Gamecock softball, yeah, I went to so many games last year. It's like, okay, see you again this year.
Yeah.
And it was electric, amazing. Any type of good adjective you could think of, I would put into that sentence.
What do you think is the next step, Lexi? Going through all of last year, the ups, the downs, everything in between, an awesome foundation I feel like you guys established. What is what has to happen to kind of take that next step, you think, just in terms of the process? I know the goal for the next step is the World Series, but what has to happen, do you think, to get there?
I'd say continuing to finish the job and finishing the task at hand, because once you can do that, then you can start the next task, and then the next one, and then the next one. And that's kind of the basis of our entire process and system, is stacking habits and stacking goals on top of one another, because once you complete one, then that sets you up for the next one. Yeah. And that just continues to trickle down into every single thing that we do. I mean, you think about pitch by pitch, out by out, well, then it goes game by game. So every time, I think our focus internally is just going to be to give our very best for every single task that's at hand in that moment. And once we complete that, then it's the next one that's ahead.
Precious, we talked about those atmospheres with her. What is it going to be like for you, like that first home game or the first home South Carolina SEC game for you? Did you grow up going to the camps at South Carolina, really?
Yeah, a little bit? And games, all of that.
Okay, what will it be like, you think, to suit up and go out there for the first time this year?
I think it's actually funny, because I remember whenever I was at UGA last year, I was thinking about the super regional crowd, and I remember I don't know how I saw it. I think I just saw it on Instagram or something. I was like, oh my gosh, it is literally packed there. And obviously I've grown up going to so many games here, but I don't think I can remember ever going to a game that packed. And so I remember I saw it and I was like, whoa, like that is crazy. Like just the way that they were building the program here. Like I just was excited just because I was from here, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like not even really thinking that this is where God would lead me back to, but just more of like, wow, like that is amazing the way that they're building something so special there. So I don't know, for me, I think it'll just be surreal being on that field, knowing that I've grown up watching so much, literally so many games here. I think I'll just be like, wow, like God is just amazing.
You touched on it a little bit there, but when you entered the portal and South Carolina reached out, like how did that process come about? Like who reached out first and was like, come visit? Like what all went into you ultimately, returning here?
Yeah, while I was in the portal, I think Coach Jody was the first one that reached out to me, and they were like, yeah, we want to get you on campus and whatever, and I was just like, okay, like that would be great. Like I grew up here, like I'm super excited to come, and I had gone on a few visits before that, but I knew like in the back of my mind, if I visited here, like this is where I would want to be. And yeah, I came on campus and I literally committed that day. Like I was like, nope, this is where I want to be. I don't have to think twice about it. Like I was in the office with Coach Ash and I was just like, nope, this is it. Like I looked at my parents, I was like, I don't even need to talk to you guys. I know, like this is what I want to do. And they knew going into the visit, that's what I wanted as well. So
Lexi, I want to ask you when we got you, and then we're going to let y'all get out of here. As a catcher, you see everything. You have probably the most unique view of everything else going on the field defensively. I know there's a lot of new pitchers on this roster this year. Sam Gress, obviously going to be difficult to replace. She was like a heart and soul type player for y'all last year. But I do feel like maybe there's some more depth to the roster this year in terms of pitchers. What have you seen, just from the, I guess, development of some of the returners and then some of the newcomers that are going to be on this roster this year?
Yeah, so we have 7 arms this year. 2 freshmen, Julie, she's a sophomore, couldn't really tell you all their classes, but there's a lot of experience from even other schools. Emma Friedel's a transfer, and Josie's a transfer from Mississippi State, and a lot of experience, a lot of success at their previous schools. So I think just their knowledge and their wisdom from the game and in the circle specifically is going to kind of propel our pitching staff forward. They're going to be able to bring the freshmen along that need it. Our 2 returning arms is Jory Hurd and Neely Lamb, and both of them just put their heads down and their eyes forward. They got better on their own craft, and they have just instilled this sense of motivation and drive within the pitching staff. And it starts in the bullpen, and then you see the product in the circle. And I think it's just going to trickle down into our transfers. It trickles down into our freshmen, and then obviously it spreads out into the whole rest of the field. But definitely a lot of talent, a lot of experience, a lot of success from their previous places and their past years. So I think that's just going to help us a lot.
What is the case for, if you're listening, man, I want to check out a South Carolina softball game, either one of you,
I mean,
what are they going to see? What are they going to see from South Carolina softball this year, you think?
I think they're going to see a lot of passion, a lot of presence. I think everyone on the field, anyone at any time, no matter what the role is, everyone's there and they're very excited to be there. They're passionate about what we do. I think you're going to just enjoy seeing what it's like to be a female athlete.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of passion, just like what Precious was saying, but I also think you're going to see a lot of joy. I mean, the joy that everybody has to be on the field and to compete alongside one another, and a lot of belief in one another and belief in ourselves, and a lot of winning.
There you go. All right, lots of winning. You heard it there. Go check them out, and you can actually, most of the games, you can stream them on SEC Plus as well. So if you want to get a kind of preview, you can do that too. So, ladies, hey, I appreciate the time. Lexi, Precious, y'all are awesome. Appreciate y'all coming by. Good luck at the camp. If you're listening, go check out the camp, and you'll have a great rest of your week, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right, like I said, you may be listening to this on the Garnet Trust Hour, on the game, on the radio, or Gamecock Central YouTube, wherever it is. We appreciate you joining us. For Lexi and Precious, I've been Wes Mitchell. Y'all have a good one.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you, wrapping up the hour here on the game. Chris Clark's supposed to be along with us in a minute, but you said he was tending to some very important super secret business on the phone.
Yeah, just a call, I think. Just something. Yeah. So
maybe he knows who the next offensive coordinator is going to be.
The way you described it, I don't think it's that.
That is what we call internet speculation.
Yes.
Where we take a small piece of information and we run with it and draw our own conclusions.
You're darn right. So, but yeah, I don't know if he'll be along with us this segment for oddities of college football, but he'll be here after that, I think.
Oh, I know he will. And Chris, if he's talking to somebody, it's got to be very, very important. But you mentioned it is the time for the oddities of college football, as we do each and every Tuesday. And we're going to take a little dip down into the Division II ranks where none other than our own Benedict Tigers had their backs up against the wall at the very end of the game against Wingate when this happened.
He'll just dump it down to Simmons. Simmons pump fakes. Now he'll throw it all the way to the other side of the field. There's room down the sideline. Boss chasing him down. Brandon Perry trying to get to it. Oh my goodness. Benedict has scored. Benedict has scored. Holy cow.
Holy cow is right. Benedict down 19-24 with 2 seconds left on the clock. Jackson Jensen takes essentially a screen, was at 86 yards all the way to score the game-winning touchdown with no time left on the clock to advance Benedict into the second round of the D2 playoffs.
All it took was just really one pass over one lateral across the field, and it's like, bam, he's off to the races. Like, I always think of, like, the Miami-Duke game from, like the mid-2010s. You know that game I'm talking about with the tons of laterals that it took to win that game? All it took was, like, one really good lateral here, and the defenders are all beat. And it's like, he's just got two guys to beat at the end here, and he's gone. I mean, what a crazy sequence of events. And I'm glad I sent you this one because I'm like, wow, this is a local one too. It's a crazy ending and just wild that happened. So good for Benedict.
Hey, and much like we talked about South Carolina State the other day, at least there are some programs in the state playing championship football as of right now. So congrats to them for advancing through. They'll take on Albany State coming up in round number 2. So that's exciting. That's cool to see.
No, definitely cool to see.
All right, keeping on with the oddities of college football. Not a whole lot's gone right for Stanford this year. And you may have forgotten that Andrew Luck is essentially the program's general manager right now. The other night, they were playing their rivalry game against Cal when perhaps the best sideline interview of all time occurred.
Stanford's general manager and Andrew Luck. We were talking a little bit about how important this rivalry is. For you, being able to be a part of it, how meaningful is it?
It's huge. It was great to be as a player and now be as a GM and watch these guys. I'm going to watch here for a second. Oh, ball! Go, Jay, go! Go, Jay! Go!
We just talked about this rivalry. To see that play just now, I mean, describe the emotion.
Hard to say. It's a hell of a job by Omar and Jay Green. It's good. Let's get it going now, all right? Appreciate it.
So, Stanford down 3-0 in the first quarter. Jay Green picks up a fumble and returns it 49 yards for a touchdown. Stanford would go on to win 31-10, only their fourth one on the year. This game also ended up getting Justin Wilcox fired the other day, by the way. But, like, I love the fact that Andrew Luck just turned into all of us in the middle of that play. When the ball comes out, he's yelling, ball, and cheering him down the sidelines. Like, look, I loved Andrew Luck as a player. It's a shame that the injuries did him in as an NFL player because I think his potential was sky high. But man, anytime he pops up for something like this, I always enjoy seeing it.
Oh yeah, man, he's still got that dog in him. It seems like. So yeah, I'm happy to see Andrew Luck enjoying life after football. And it's been a tough year for Stanford, but look, anytime you can beat your rival in Cal, that's a big one. And getting Justin Wilcox fired, that I was not expecting that.
That adds icing to the cake there. And look, it shows you how quick things can turn in college football. Cal was one of the talks of the sport a year and a half ago, right? Remember
They were off to a great. They were off to a great start this season too.
Yeah, they're off to a good start. They're now 6-5 and looking destined for about a 500 year. And yeah, even in a place like Cal where the standard isn't super high, they only deal with mediocrity for so long.
Yeah. So, but good win for Stanford there. Blowout win by 21 points and big underdog against Notre Dame this weekend.
Speaking of teams not having a great season, UCLA, they're not going bowling. So when they played Washington the other night, they just decided to throw the kitchen sink at it, which included a, well, not great, but fake field goal attempt.
Between 40 and 49 yards. Oh, it's a fake. They get it back to him, or they tried to. Scooped up by McLaughlin. And here he goes. Their leading tackler puts 6 on the board.
So for those that didn't get to see that happen, UCLA is down 13-0 late in the second quarter, just before halftime. They're lining up for about a 45-yard field goal. They decide to run a fake, and it's one of those ones where the holder tosses it over his head for essentially the kicker to catch it in stride and go around the edge and try at least get a first down. The only problem was the edge defender was completely unblocked. And I don't know if the kicker was looking at the defender and didn't watch the ball all the way in, but ball ends up on the ground, and pretty much the defender is unabated going into the end zone. Yeah, the throw was kind of behind him, too. That probably didn't help. But even if he would have caught it, he would have gotten absolutely blown up at about the 45-yard line by the Husky coming off the edge there. So, I'm not mad at UCLA because why not? You've got nothing else to lose at this point. But yeah, not well done.
No, not a great toss back. We've seen that before where teams have run that so successfully, but it's like, and I feel like it's such a hard thing to do because you're on one knee, you're kind of just blindly throwing it backwards, hoping the guy catches it. And I think it was just a bit too off target, and that's why it failed. But I don't blame UCLA for trying things like that. I mean, why not? What did they have to lose at this point?
Yeah, it didn't end up working out for them, but yeah, not the best field goal attempt there. So it was kind of a tame weekend from college football overall, and a tame weekend from a oddity standpoint as well, I guess.
Hopefully we get some big oddities this weekend. We have a full slate, and we're definitely going to have to really find some good ones out there.
Hopefully so. And again, we'll get a full, basically 2.5 days worth of college football. So yeah, hopefully we can get some good stuff to have some oddities for next week. So we'll see. That'll do it for the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling Heating. Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here in the game.
If you're out there looking for a local, reliable HVAC service for your home or your business in the Midlands, reach out to our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating, KrantzCooling.com, K-R-A-N-T-Z, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com, or give Justin Krantz, the general manager over there, and his team a call, 803-755-0793. I've had Krantz Cooling out to my home several times. They did a mini split for me in the garage. They've checked out all the other units at my house to make sure they're running in tip-top shape. Love my experience so much that when my mom moved to Irmo, I got them to go out to her home too. They put in 2 mini splits for her. They handle all her HVAC needs as well. They could do the same for you. KrantzCooling.com or 803-755-0793. Since 1983, Krantz Cooling, their team has been providing great service to business owners and families in the Midlands. They can do the same for you.
Oh, 11 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you here, navigating you through the week. Obviously a different week with Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday. We'll spend plenty of time today talking about Clemson, getting you set for the rivalry on Saturday. We'll talk to Paul Strelo of Tiger Illustrated coming up at the bottom of the hour. But Chris, Jack told me you were on the phone. We're getting more intel on the offensive coordinator search. Something big scoop coming.
I think Wes was on the phone.
Okay. Wes.
I was actually, spoiler, cutting a couple new spots for Firehouse Subs because if y'all haven't heard, talked about it the other day, I'll remind everybody, French dip's back.
Oh, yes, it is.
So I was giving a little description of the French dip. Wes was on the phone doing some work, I think.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any more information, Wes?
Let me just go ahead and disappoint the people.
It's completely unrelated.
Not OC related. I was getting a little bit of Clemson intel just from somebody who's watched them, way more than I have. So
were they at practice this week?
Not this week.
Oh. Any intel you can share?
I mean, that's for later this week.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
This is the information gathering part of the week.
That's right. It is.
Yes.
And we'll slowly start to dive into Clemson as the hour goes along. But kind of getting back to the OC search, we've seen 8 quarters of Mike Furry as the offensive coordinator, 6 of them pretty darn good. Obviously, the first half against A&M and all 4 quarters on Saturday against Coastal. Yes, it's Coastal, so I think everybody wants to pump the brakes on that a little bit, but the best offensive performance of the entire year. And really, while I think most of us lean towards it's probably still going to be an outside hire, he does still have one more chance to audition this weekend against Clemson. And if you go out there, and not saying you're going to put up 600 yards of offense and 51 points, but you do something in the neighborhood of 30-plus points and, say, 400 yards, you're at least making a strong case for yourself to, again, be considered for this job and keep it going into next year.
Yeah, I think so far, guys, he has done more in terms of just in general. It's very hard to take over a coordinator spot and expect a huge jump. And, you really can't put your stamp completely on it, although we have seen him put his stamp on it. I think that one thing that's helped is it appears that he and Sean Elliott are kind of in lockstep on things. I think there's some overlap in their approach. There's some overlap in just the personality of those two guys. So I think that has worked. I think we've seen Sean Elliott's maybe stamp on the run game a little bit more. And, yeah, I mean, to me, guys, short of obviously winning the A&M game by having a big second-half drive there, which would have, I think, put that game away, it has been about as good as you could expect. And now I think you do have one thing kind of just, I guess, hanging over this is that we saw South Carolina go the internal route with Mike Shula. It obviously did not work out. And just the perception of saying, hey, we're going to do this again may not rub people the right way. And then you have, I guess, more of a sample size than you had with Shula, but you still will be talking about, at best, a 3-game sample size. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's one of those things if you can say at the beginning of the year, hey, it's a small sample size on Shula, we're still waiting on things to kind of play themselves out, then you have to admit, like, this would be a small sample size for Mike Furry as well. Now, I do think he has earned the right, regardless of even if it is an outside hire. I think Furry has shown you some things to where I would want this guy to still be, like, heavily involved, at the very least, in what South Carolina is doing on offense moving forward. And even, Chris, I would say, what do we even think about the idea if you bring someone in who is maybe a system guy and maybe even if Furry's not the OC this time, maybe it's a guy who has, I don't know what Furry's aspirations and goals are, but if he wants to be at South Carolina long term, maybe bring somebody else in, but you're kind of putting Furry in a position to maybe be the full-time OC in the future.
Yeah, I think you made some good points at the beginning there. There's Beamer's been talking a lot lately about perception and reality, and not as it relates to the OC search, but I'm going to kind of steal that phrasing. The reality is that South Carolina obviously has to get much better on offense than they were this season, much better in some key areas such as negative plays, turnovers, tackles for loss allowed, sacks given up. Those have been consistent themes.
Yeah.
even when they've been having some pockets of success offensively during Beamer's, 4+ almost 5 years now. And he's pointed that out too. So that is the reality of the situation. The perception of it, to go to that, is that, hey, you've gone out and you've hired, you haven't gotten like a big name. You haven't gotten a guy who has, more importantly, I think, than the big quote-unquote name, the sexy name out there, is getting a guy that's like been proven recently at the college level, right? It had been a while since Mike Shula had called plays just in general. His last play calling experience was with the New York Giants several years ago in the NFL. Lately, he's been a position coach. He was a quarterback's coach / offensive assistant for South Carolina in 2024. Dowell Loggins had not called college plays. He had been an analyst at Penn State for a little bit. He had been on staff as a tight ends coach at Arkansas, and he had called plays, obviously, for years at the NFL level. Marcus Satterfield actually had the most collegiate experience of any of those guys in terms of calling plays at Temple and Baylor, but he was not, he was not coming from a college in which he had just finished calling plays, right? So that's the perception part of it, to where, frankly, there's kind of an element of some pressure to go do that. But at the same time, I also think that, Wes, what we found out is that is actually what Shane Beamer's looking for too, is bringing in a guy, not to say someone who will have never coached in the NFL, but not like more of a college guy who has produced at the college level and done it recently. And so that's kind of the perception part. The key is obviously just getting to the reality that you got to get better however you do that.
Yeah, for sure. I think much more college style. In my opinion, we are seeing a little bit of a preview of what this offense can be in terms of just being a little bit more spread-oriented. They've been very heavy in the RPO game. There's been, I believe, some diversity in the run game in terms of some things that they've done. So, yeah, I think we're getting an idea maybe of what it may be. You're just talking about, I would say, just being a little bit more deliberate maybe about, hey, this is the system. Like right now, it's more like, hey, we're figuring this thing out on the fly. I think what do you do well? What a seller's really comfortable with? What works? And I think it's more like codifying it essentially in terms of this is what the offense is moving forward. But there's a lot of guys out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge name. Now, I think it needs to be somebody who's like done it at a high level, and there's a lot of guys who are doing it at a pretty high level that maybe aren't like SEC OCs right now that you can go get and can come in and can bring in their scheme and can get the job done. But certainly, back to Tyler's point, I would say that there were certain outcomes where you'd be saying, well, love Mike Furry, but
yeah.
He's just, at this point, it's just not an option. Based on what we've seen so far, you're at least going, he has made it intriguing.
He's made it a conversation. Yeah, and that was my fault. I got us way off. The point I should have made within my diatribe there was that, when Beamer made this move, like, he had to make that move. Like, he had to dismiss Mike Shula. That made sense. You might say, I should have done it earlier. Like, it was time. Like, needed to do it. It was going to if it didn't happen then, it would have happened at the end of the season. But to try to salvage production this season, you make that move. Well, you do have to. I mean, somebody's got to be the OC. And so him going through it, he decided Mike Furry was the guy, that it made the most sense. You never know how any of that's going to turn out. And I'm sure Shane Beamer would say, he said it at the time, like they have confidence in Mike Furry. Was he sitting there going, hey, I think we can get a lot better? Was he kind of saying, we kind of just got to get through this thing? Mm-hmm. There's an element of the unknown. You're right, Wes. Like, it could have been South Carolina could have had the same struggles they've been having. Instead, it has gotten better. Again, small sample size, but it's gotten better to where now it's like actually a little bit of a conversation. And I still think most signs point to external hire, but he's given enough evidence, like he's put enough forward in a body of work that you got to be sitting there going, okay, is this at least an option?
let's say y'all are the head coach at South Carolina now. Is there an outcome this coming Saturday when you add it with what we've seen the first 2 games? Is there an outcome where you say that we just don't have a choice? This is our guy. Like, is there a threshold that exists for that to happen, or are you still like, hey, we love it, but you just have to go with a guy who has more experience?
Look, there's always a number out there, right? That if he Tennessee'd them with 63 points and however many yards of offense they had that night, it's really hard to say that's not your guy. But again, I'm going off the reporting that you guys have had about this. It seems like outside of just something insane happening, it's going to end up being an outside hire.
So even like, all right, beat Clemson, you score 31, you look good again, like probably not enough. And just in your eyes, it's your decision.
Yeah, probably not. And look, here's the thing. You can still keep him on staff as a wide receivers coach because he's done a good job at that. So it's not like you're saying, all right, you're not the OC.
Or co-OC.
Or co-OC, yeah. He's the passing game coordinator, so he can still be involved. But it's not like you're saying, okay, you're not the offensive coordinator. Good luck wherever else you're going. Like, he can still be a part of your staff. But I just think with how important of a hire this is, I don't know if you can just take a 3-game sample size as enough to say, okay, I'm going to go internally for the second year in a row.
Right. You do have to weigh that in. I mean, there is some perception that you have to weigh in. You know, Mike Fury is not the same person as Shule. It has nothing to do. You know what I mean? But it's tough. Why are you laughing?
I just think it. I mean, it would take some fortitude to be like.
That's a clean way to put it.
It would take some fortitude to be like, I believe in this guy so much. I'm gonna just make the move.
Well, the other thing is, like, we have such incomplete information. Like, what are we hearing from above? Who's interested in the job, right?
From above?
Yeah.
From God?
Well, that too, maybe. I mean, you know what I mean? I really meant from your bosses. But, like, you know, man, that's important too, in my opinion. But I mean, if you're going through this thing, and I'm not saying this is the case, but, like, hypothetically, if some of the guys that you've targeted, like your pie in the sky, like, if I could get this dude, what if he's good where he's at and he's not coming? You know what I mean? And versus,
that was the point Tyler made the other day.
Yeah. So then do you look at it and go, okay, we do need to make an outside hire, at least one, you know, because you're going to get a quarterbacks coach, presumably. You might hire an outside offensive line coach. You might hire a tight ends coach, whatever, however you might say, maybe I can go get this guy and be a co-OC situation, right?
Yeah.
Or you might just say, look, we've got to start fresh because of where we're at, because of the situation. Like, and I think that's where it has been. Now, could that change a little bit or a lot, you know, depending on if you go have a great offensive performance against Clemson? Maybe so. There's just so many like, it's hard for me to even say. I would struggle to make that decision if I had all the information.
Sure.
I have hardly any of it right now.
Yeah.
You know, so what was your answer, Wes?
Yeah, I think it's got to. I don't think it's got to quite Tennesseeum in the way Tyler put it, but it would. I would have to have the information behind the scenes too, where I'm just going, where I'm sitting there watching him work with the room, and I'm like, this is what I would want to see from the person I hired.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if I was just like, this is what I'm looking for anyway, and then you go out and put up 38 points and just go up and down the field on Clemson.
Yeah.
Be hard not to at that point.
You know what? I hope this weekend goes well enough to where we have to have that conversation, to be honest with you, and we'll see. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
Well, I hope we get the opportunity to be better. But we talked about that last year, and that's definitely something that does not need to happen. That's not something we don't need to disrespect the other team's logo and all that stuff. We need to win the game, with class and celebrate. I mean, certainly, but all that stuff. We need to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen when you're at the opposing team's stadium.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. That, of course, the voice of Dabo Swinney, head coach of the Clemson Tigers, talking about no flag planting this year. He says that's something that he and Beamer have talked about in reference to whatever side wins, not to disrespect the logo of the other, and that would obviously be in the case of Clemson if they were to come in here and win. But obviously this has been a back-and-forth rivalry over the past couple of years since Beamer's been here, where the away team has gotten the advantage every single time, and South Carolina still looking for that first win at home against Clemson since 2013. And again, neither team coming into this game anywhere near where we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year.
I feel like I've seen a lot of Clemson and Carolina fans arguing about who's had it worse this year as opposed to arguing who's going to win the game. And, yeah, I don't appreciate Dabo bringing class into this thing. It's supposed to be hate week for the rivalry, so not a fan of that, Dabo. In all seriousness, though, what do y'all think of the flag planting thing? Like, it felt like it took the last couple of years. It's just taken on a mind of its own, right?
It's happening everywhere now.
Yeah, I feel like this was a thing, but it wasn't a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't a trend, and then it just became, I'm going to plant my flag, and it's going to start a fight, and...
Yeah, because Baker did it at Ohio State like a decade ago. That was only one of the few times I remember that happening. Like, we got a lot of buzz and attention, but I don't remember many after that. But, yeah, in the past couple of years, I mean, it happened last year at Michigan, Ohio State, North Carolina, and somebody had happened last year. There's a big brawl. It's kind of become a prevalent thing across college football now.
That really upset the 50 people in the stands at Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Happened. Yeah, I mean, I also feel like something that, like, fan bases, they really, really hate it when it happens to them, and then they are all for it.
Oh, yeah, you would definitely defend your guys if it's...
Yeah.
Oh, I should have won the game if you didn't want us to plant a flag.
And Dabo said that he's like, we've talked about that. I don't know if he means like I've said my piece on it, or we do know that he and Shane Beamer talk a good bit, I would say a good bit. They communicate. There's a relationship there.
Yeah.
Some people don't like that, but it is. It's not going to...
I think they have a mutual respect for one another.
I mean, this rivalry shows in the recent years.
Sure.
Hating the opponent more doesn't mean you're going to beat them more.
No.
Like it has absolutely nothing to do with it, actually, just who plays the best. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a great thought about it. I do know this, though. It's been a weird rivalry lately because of that home and away discrepancy. Like, Shane Beamer is probably sitting there going, I don't know, man, kind of like to play this game in Clemson. Like, he's never going to say that, but they've been so much more successful. South Carolina hasn't won a game against Clemson at Williams-Brice since, 2013, which is absolutely insane to think about. They, quote-unquote, lost a game during COVID, but that was going to be here, and I do not think that would have gone well if I had to guess. It's still a really good Clemson team, South Carolina team that obviously really struggled, but South Carolina's, this is from, I'm actually taking this from the website of our next guest at Tiger Illustrated, which is now on 3. So Larry Williams wrote this. Offensive output for South Carolina, the last 3 meetings in Clemson, 2018, 2022, 2024, they've averaged 27.6 points a game, and they've won 2 of those games, obviously the last 2. Offensive output in the last 3 meetings with Clemson in the friendly confines of Williams-Brice Stadium. Y'all want to take a guess at how many points per game? You probably can if you remember the scores.
Wait, from the last 2 years when Clemson came here?
Last 3.
Last 3.
Oh, it's like 4 points a game or something?
It's 3.
Yeah.
3.33.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was a shutout. You had the 16-7 game in 2023. You had the shutout in 21. and I don't even remember what 19 was, 30-3 or something like that.
Yeah, one close.
So, I mean, I don't know. You can't really maybe put your finger on it other than it happened. It just so happened that 2 of those years were probably the worst offensive years for South Carolina under Shane Beamer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 2 seasons where they struggled the most on offense. So, on some level, it makes sense. But, man, just a big discrepancy.
Let me just go ahead and put out one of my keys to victory just way, 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 way too early. Last week, we talked about key to victory, like, hey, start fast, right? And Carolina obviously did that. Let me say, just don't start slow. How about that? We don't even have to have the threshold of start fast, because how many of those games, it feels like South Carolina, in recent memory, at home against Clemson, has just had very bad things happen early on. And it's put them completely, in recovery mode. You had the backwards pass last year where nobody thought it was a backwards pass. I can remember, sorry, guest Jason Brown, I think there was an early mistake in his start here. I know there was a early Jake Bentley pick 6. The years are running together for me, but I just remember early game bad things for South Carolina at home. And so would you love to go down there and score the first drive and set the tone and all that? Yes, absolutely. But even it doesn't even have to be to that threshold. Can you just get into the flow of this game and just let the first drive not kind of dictate how the game is going to go? Because as we saw, that touchdown that you just handed to Clemson
the difference
2 years ago, it was a massive play in that game.
Well, fortunately, this South Carolina team knows how to start games. After that, has been up in the air a little bit, but they can start good.
And the weird thing is, you think back to the last couple road Clemson games, South Carolina didn't exactly start hot in those either. You had a pick 6 in the 2022 game, gave up another score after that. You had, last year's game. It's not like you just raced out, but for whatever reason at home it's been tough. You're right, Wes, that first game you referenced in 2021, that was 30-0 loss. Clemson scores on the opening drive, then you punt. Clemson actually throws a pick, but then you punt, and then they punt, and then you throw a pick, and you held them to a field because the pick was on their own 5-yard line, and you held them to a field goal. But still, Clemson's out. Then second quarter, they score on the opening drive of the second quarter, and it's 17-0. And you're just not built at that point to come back from it. And then, the 2023 game, I remember that one. I mean, the stadium was keyed up. You actually got a stop on downs early. Mm-hmm. Clemson went for it on a 4th down. The stadium was absolutely rocking, but then you throw a pick, and Clemson scores a touchdown, and now you're down 7-0. So I'm with you. You don't have to go up 17-0, score on your first 3 drives in order to win this game. But, can you find a way to not dig a hole, especially at home? That would be a welcome sight.
We'll get some insight from the other side of things. Paul Strelow of Tiger Illustrated going to join us on the other side as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along on your Tuesday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris along with you here on your Tuesday on the game, inching closer to this weekend, and another edition of the Palmetto Bowl between South Carolina and Clemson. Get some views from what's going on in the upstate. Joining us now on the AAA Heating and Air Phone Lines is Paul Strelo of Tiger Illustrated. Paul, appreciate you joining us today. How are we doing this morning?
Doing great, Tyler.
Very good, very good. Obviously, we're excited for the game this upcoming weekend. It's not been the season that South Carolina has wanted, obviously, and we've been reacting to that all season long. How is the sentiment of the fan base in the upstate with what's gone on with the Tigers this year?
This is a unique state rivalry game because it's the first time in a while where you've got both sides kind of going back and forth on, you think your side's bad. No, look what's going on over here. It's a great tribute to Lou Holtz and kind of his ability to kind of pour mouth his teams. But, I think it's a similar deal. I think the teams are, share similar traits in their ability or inability to get out of their own way. I think there's some difference in probably, South Carolina kind of struggling to either learn how to win or close out games, whereas I think Clemson just kind of bumbles and stumbles its way into issues. So I think there's some differences in how they go about and why they are each wired the way they are. But I think it's a similar feeling on the season, but also there are differences as far as, you have to look at the context for, Dabo Swinney has long been criticized for just kind of the strategies, or I say criticized, it's been a subject of debate for can he thrive, his program thrive in the modern transactional NIL era. This season kind of stood to be a referendum on that, and a lot has backfired in terms of decisions made to really focus on retention and kind of bet on their internal player development. That's where a lot of their moves have not panned out and have people, have folks kind of questioning, what kind of change or changes are going to be imparted to get this thing moving back on an upward trajectory.
Paul, it's Chris. Thanks for taking the time to join us, man. So let's talk about the health of this Clemson team, because it seems like that's been an issue that's weighing in heavily going into this game. I saw this morning that Chris Denson, who was last seen with a pretty exciting performance, it looked like, against Furman last week, even putting it in the proper context.
Yeah.
Still had a nice performance and is on the scout team impersonating Lenora Sellers and is the latest Clemson Tiger to be hurt. But, probably wouldn't factor into this game. Who are some of the guys that you would expect to factor into this game who maybe won't be available or might be limited?
I think the two that come to mind, I think when freshman offensive lineman Braden Jacobs was stuck into the offense, into the starting lineup and kind of moved from backup left tackle to left guard, that changed the complexion of their offensive line, not in a way where they were overpowering anybody, but they were somewhat formidable and much more competitive. They cleaned up some things, were able to do more in the run game whenever they decided to run. He got hurt, in the victory formation, celebrating the win at Louisville. And so I think there's a substantial drop-off there as they plug back in Colin Sadler, who had been the starter before, coming back from a lower leg injury. And he, I could argue, had never really rounded into form coming out of the summer from taking last year off from a back injury. So I think there's a substantial drop-off there in what they're able to do and how they're able to protect the quarterback and just kind of carry out assignments and the trickle-down effect there. And then I think there is another significant injury in Jaheim Lawson being out, getting hurt late, or in the Furman game's out of control or out of hand, and he gets hurt. He's really been their best defensive end, and he's their number 3 guy. But as particularly having an end mobile and agile enough to have a chance at chasing down Sellers, I think he is the one who stood out and would probably have played as prominent a role for them this game. So Clemson already is hurting in competitive depth. I think that this means they just, ride more with TJ Parker and Will Helt. But really, there's a significant fall off to Cade Denhoff, a veteran guy who can be in the right place, but is not necessarily a plus or even kind of medium athlete there at defensive end. So I think that those are two drop-offs that hurt Clemson going into this one.
Paul, it's Wes. Hope you're doing well, man. Speaking of drop-offs, and I know this is a loaded question, but just, can you properly give us any insight on, like, just what the heck happened this year? Like, a lot of people thought, hey, this is, myself included, it's one of the most complete rosters in college football in terms of retention and the guys they have coming back. And, man, I'm watching the end of the Louisville game, and it's just like I felt like both teams were trying to hand the game to the other. It just, like, hurt my brain to watch. What the heck has happened?
The Gamecock Central takeover needs to extend beyond an hour to really cover the bases here. I think expectations got too high based off a second half people saw against Texas. Composed to first half and what you saw against South Carolina and other games. I think there are some factors there. I think this team saw Cade Klubnik revert to an older or a younger Cade Klubnik in that LSU game, and I think confidence got shot from there. And then when they came out and had Georgia Tech really kind of push them around a little bit, I think that and they weren't able to kind of flip a switch. I think confidence eroded from there. I think that leads you into a discussion on just generally the physical and mental strength of this team. Even kind of using the offensive line as an embodiment of that. What should have been their best offensive line in years was veteran, was experienced, but wasn't all that quality. And so I think you start looking at deeper-seated issues that have led to kind of the gradual demise from 2 losses to 3 to 4 kind of year over year. That ties into competitive depth. I think Clemson, 2 layers to this team are that Clemson bet on, instead of going to the transfer portal, spending its resources on retaining its core, the players who they developed, who are, part of the culture and the fabric of the team. Most of those, not all, like an Antonio Williams has met expectation. Most of the big names have not lived up to really the value commensurate to what they were paid. And so that is one layer combined with they don't really have a lot of competitive depth. You see Furman moving the ball up and down the field against their 2s. I think they have missed on a number of evaluations and the player development angle that they take a lot of pride in. And I think that ends up kind of coming back to staff issues, programs and process kind of stuff that, you look at Dabo Swinney potentially addressing in this offseason with some coaching changes. But I think it's a fair question on does it extend beyond that? And will also kind of lead into where, Clemson is going to use the transfer portal more this offseason than ever before. What the extent will they do that? And when you have Dabo Swinney at least talking about not running off players and things he won't change, I think it's a fair question on how much will change and just kind of what will Swinney's actions be compared to what his words are.
Off of that, we only got 2 minutes here. We got to break at 45. but how do you view how Dabo has navigated this season where, again, it was supposed to be the I told you so season and it hasn't gone that way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I think this one is different than previous seasons where I think he reached a point of he and they were struggling for answers. And I think there have been other times where it's been easy to say, look, if we just had a better quarterback or if we were just better at safety. But I think a lot of pieces have tied in to, him coming back and saying, like, I should have trusted my instincts more, and that leading to more questions and answers on what direction, what does he truly believe the issues are, and will that help solve the problem? Because they've changed out coordinators 2 or 3 times over the last several years, and you're still seeing the same kind of Clemson offense. And so I think, I think he has taken a different personality to it. Last year was more fire and brimstone inside the building. I think it started off a little bit like that this year, and then I think this one has taken a turn to where it's almost, all right, we kind of see our flaws. We are who we are. Let's do the best we can to kind of get through it, and then we'll, a lot of us will probably part ways, players, a few coaches, and we'll reset and go at it again.
Paul, good stuff as always. We appreciate it, man. Looking forward to this weekend.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, gentlemen.
Again, Paul Streeler there of Tiger Illustrated, and we'll continue to preview Clemson as the week goes along. But coming up next to wrap up the hour, we'll see how we did on buy or sell over the weekend. Up next is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Rolls on here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you Wrapping up the hour here on your Tuesday on the game. Again, Coach Beamer will speak today at 1 o'clock as always for his usual Tuesday press conference previewing Clemson. And then Carolina calls tonight with him and Todd Ellis because, of course, Thursday is Thanksgiving. If you heard the clapping going into the last break, that was Wes Mitchell, who I'm anticipating knows he probably did pretty well on buy or sell this past weekend.
I'm not positive. I think I did okay, but I just get really excited about buy or sell.
So, for context, we went into the weekend with you two tied at 37. I was 2 points behind at 35. So, buy or sell number one, last week, 23 points, or the previous week, 23 points against A&M was the highest they had all season. Buy or sell, they would go over that. We all bought that, and they more than doubled that total with 51 on Saturday. So, pretty easy buy across the board on that one.
Okay.
Number two, South Carolina outscores them in all 4 quarters.
Yep.
Chris, you're the only one to buy that. They did not outscore them in all 4 quarters. The fourth quarter was a 7-7 tie.
Oh. I'll protest.
Because the block punt.
Yeah.
And then you had the Bradley Dunn touchdown.
The dang block punt.
The frickin' block punt.
And you know what? I immediately thought of buy or sell when that happened. I was like, oh, Chris can be wrong unless they can go down and get 2 scores.
I'm now just as mad about that as Shane Beamer was.
Probably not possible.
So in that moment,
that was a good pick. I'll stand on that. With the way the game
process was good.
Process was great.
Outside of one great special teams play, you would have been right.
It wasn't even a great special teams play, though. It was just you forgot to block a guy.
That's true.
They just kind of, there it is.
But when I was talking with Lexi and Precious earlier, we talked about the quality plate appearances where you might have a hard hit ball, but it doesn't result in a hit. I'll give you a quality
Thank you.
plate appearance.
Thank you. It doesn't make me feel any better, though.
Sometimes
you just have a bad pick. Like, I think that was a good pick, and it just didn't work out.
All right, buy or sell number 3. I set the line at 2.5 of total South Carolina players to throw a pass. We all bought the over. 4 total players attempted to pass on Saturday. All 4 of the quarterbacks that saw the field. No trick plays, no wide receiver throws or anything like that. But Sellers, Woods, Nolan, and Doty all attempted to pass on Saturday.
No Jimmy Francis.
We didn't get 5 deep. But Jimmy's not a senior though, right?
No.
He's got time.
Yeah.
One day we're going to see that number 25 trot out there.
We'll get him in there at some point.
That's going to bother me so much.
What?
I hate quarterbacks over the number 19. I can't watch BYU without getting angry that Bear Bachmeier wears 47.
I kind of love it for a walk-on guy. If it's your starting quarterback, I hate it. If it's a walk-on guy, kind of love it.
So if we bought across the board on that one, buy or sell number 4. Coastal was 24th in rush yards per game. They've been held under 100 yards 3 times. South Carolina had held 3 different opponents under 100 yards. Buy or sell, South Carolina could hold them under 100 yards on Saturday. Their rushing total was 46 yards, and Chris was the only one that bought it.
Nice job, Chris.
Good job. Final one here.
Not a good pick.
Coastal had allowed a kickoff and punt return touchdown this year. Buy or sell, they would allow at least 1 on Saturday. Didn't happen. And you two are the only ones that sold on it. I was believing we were going to get a Vakari Swain record breaker. Didn't happen. Pay somebody $1,000.
He did break about 5 tackles on that one return.
I thought. I was like, oh.
He was like a guy away on 1-2 to where if he broke that tackle, then he's out in some space and you're starting to wonder about it. But
yeah.
Well, the good thing about it is next week will be $1,100.
$1,100.
Okay.
We'll release a special teams touchdown contest, and this is it. It's it for the year.
That's it.
We got one more opportunity because, of course, they're not going bowling. So, if you can watch Swain or somebody else, you can return kickoff for a touchdown that counts too, or a block punt. It's all special teams. Any kind of special team score that'll net somebody $1,100.
Mike even needs to get the boys back doing some tackling drills this week. I finally finished my rewatch of the game.
Yeah.
So there was some struggle with the process of tackling people to the ground.
The process.
Well, they play James Madison this weekend.
Oof.
Yeah, James Madison scoring some points.
Yeah. Listen, James Madison needs style points. They need to make their best case possible. And they'll have a championship game the following weekend, obviously, but they need as many style points as possible for the committee. So if they can take advantage of Coastal and hang 50 points in them like Carolina did, they will.
I think they can.
They've got a really good offense. Tyler, what's our so with those results in mind?
So you guys are still tied at the top, 41 apiece. I'm now 3 spots behind y'all with 38. I only got
we're
3
opening it up, Wes.
Yeah, you guys are pulling away.
We'll go 0 for next week for sure.
All it takes is one. All it takes is one.
Yeah.
And by your request on Friday, we will also factor in where Lane Kiffin is going as part of buy or sell too. So be formulating your opinions, reading the articles, where you think the Lane train's going to decide. Yeah. And, whatever. Is he going to do like a LeBron type decision on Saturday?
I think he's got to be careful with this, boys. You can really, I know Lane's been the apple of all those teams' eye. He can tick some people off. Maybe Lane doesn't care, but
it's got to be fun to be the prettiest girl at the dance, right?
Do y'all find it a little strange? He's got all the, like, Kwan Lacey and some of the players, Trinidad Chambliss, going on social, being like, I believe in my leader, Lane Kiffin, and they are engaged.
They just transfer and play for him next year.
There was some talk on the Ole Miss message boards about, like, hey, Lane's being a little too chummy with Kwan Lacey, so we need to make sure this guy's got a deal in place for next year.
We could see half a roster playing in a playoff game coming up in a month. It's going to be interesting to see. Talk about that more as the week goes along. Coming up next, halftime show on your Tuesday here on The Game.